everybody, it's Jimmy with Fancy Schmancy Wino. That's Jimmy, not James. James is at home, rocking out to the greatest hits of John Tesh. We're here today to drink wine. Specifically this bottle of Perennial Vintners 2014 Malone de Bourgogne. If you've never heard of Malone de Bourgogne, welcome to the club. It's normally known as Muscadet, however, which you may have heard of. There's some kind of thing, if it's grown in the United States and sold here, they can't call it that, so they call it by the grape variety, which is Malone de Bourgogne. Why are we trying this wine? Well, we wanted to do local wines this week, and at least for me, you can't get much more local than this. If you've ever seen any television program, movie, whatever, that involves Seattle at some point in it, they're going to be on a ferry or going to the ferry. And one of those ferry boats ends up at Bainbridge Island, which is a cool little area in more ways than one. It's a nice place to be, but it's also a cool marine climate that you normally wouldn't associate with good wine growing conditions. However, at Perennial Vintners, the owner and grower and winemaker, Mike Lem something, I can't remember his last name, but anyway, Mike recognized that the conditions there were probably suited for the Malone grape, which is from the Loire Valley in France. And so back in 2004, he started planting it. Long story short, 12 years later, he's still making it. However, despite his success in it, I believe he is still the only one in Washington State making this wine, which really inspired me to want to try it with you. So let's do that. Right off, I'm going to talk about the color, which is an interesting, see, like a yellowy gold that's almost, you know, to be 100% honest, kind of looks like urine. Not gonna lie, that is definitely not what you would normally mention about a wine, but that's what I see, so that's what I'm telling you. Hate me for it, I don't care. It also looks like it has a little more body than I would have expected, because you know, Muscadets I've had in the past were always pretty light. This looks like it's got a little more oomph to it than that. Let's give it a whiff. Has kind of like a citrus and herb kind of vibe going on it, but light herb, not very strong, not very floral, which I was expecting. Well, no, there's a little floral in there, maybe. I don't know my flowers, so I apologize. I can't tell you what types of flowers. I can pick out white flowers versus, you know, roses, but I couldn't nail it down on that. Really crisp smelling, but you get some citrusy, but it's kind of a wonky citrus. Anyway, let's give it a taste. Well, Muscadet is known for acid, and this Malone de Bourgogne follows suit. Lots of acid, and it is bone dry. If you're looking for a fruity wine, keep looking. This isn't it. However, doesn't mean it's not good, because this is pretty tasty. Very unique, though. I don't want to say odd, but yeah. Let me try it again. Let's see if I get more in it. Very minerally, lots of mineral. Little bit, at least for me, I get a little bit of apple, but it's like a little bit of tart, unripe kind of apple. Lots of mineral. And, you know, I read a review, I wish I could tell you the specific wine, but it was a Malone couple months ago that described it as having a saline kind of quality to it. I would say this has that, but it's odd because when I think saline, I think salt, and it's not that. There's definitely, I don't get salt, but I get the minerally, but it has that kind of saline vibe going to it. Very unique though. You're going to have a hell of a time comparing this to other wines. I suppose you could really look like a genius in a blind testing. If you threw one of these in there, you'd be able to nail it almost every time. Yeah, I dig it though. Pretty unique. I should mention it's an 11% alcohol by volume wine. It's not, should also explain why we're in the kitchen. It's to emphasize the fact that this wine is made to make food taste good. It's not necessarily a wine that you're going to knock your socks off and sit back with a plate of cheese. It's really made, at least in my opinion, Muscadet in general, to pair with food. I dig this though. It is unique, and I can see why there's going to be people that wouldn't particularly like it. It's not very fruity, at least not to me. As far as what to pair it with, Muscadet in general is seafood. It's like you're gonna have seafood, you're gonna have some of this. I am gonna have it with some scallops. I was planning to have it with some razor clams from the Washington State coast. However, our razor clam season's still been pushed a little bit back this year, and it's I don't think for another couple weeks, and I don't think this bottle's going to stay good for 2 weeks, so I may have to pick up a second bottle so that I have some when I get those clams. Grade. Let's give this puppy a grade. I'm going to say B+. Falls short of an A because, well, completely honest, just because it's such a narrow wine for me. I know you should be rating wine just on that wine, but I can only see specific instances where I would have this. It wouldn't be an everyday wine, and because of that, it's going to make it hard for me to think that it gets anything above a B+. I suppose, like point-wise, if we were to equate that to point-wise, that wouldn't be a fair way to assess a wine, but that's not how we do it here. So, all that said, if you happen to live in the area, pick up a bottle of Perennial Vintners Malone de Bourgogne 2014, give it a try, and let me know what you think. Cheers. That's tasty.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Fancy Schmancy Wino. I'm James, not Jimmy. If you watched the videos before, you know it's my brother, probably making a list of things he thinks I'm doing besides drinking wine. That said, we're two guys sharing the same name, sharing the same wines, and then sharing our thoughts with folks just like you. Last week we enjoyed the great Apothic Inferno wine. Hopefully you enjoyed it, or at least went out and got a bottle of it. And this week we wanted to get into some regional wines. Jimmy lives on the West Coast, out in the Washington area, great for wine. I'm out here in Indiana, Michigan area, and well, not as great for wine, but we do have some neat wine regions. In particular, Michigan has really grown across the U.S. as one of the great wine producers. If you count grape growing, it's number 4 in the state. If you count wine making, a little harder to tell, somewhere between 4 and 8. But in a big country with a lot of warmer states, that's pretty impressive. If you come up here in January, February, you're surprised we can grow anything up here. So there's several wine AVAs in Michigan. The one I'm closest to would be the Lakeshore, and then nearby Fenville. And so we have probably more than 50 wineries within a few hours of where we live. So we visited several of them, and today we wanted to focus on a wine from 12 Corners. My wife and I visited several wineries in the area, and what jumped out to us about 12 Corners was it was really the first winery we went to where we liked virtually everything we tried from them. And if I'm like you at all, we started sweet, moved dry, and so today we're going to share one of them that is in the semi-dry area. Now, 12 Corners is near Benton Harbor, Michigan. It's kind of out in the country, great area. It's one of those you'd call a microclimate, and so just kind of the right weather to grow a variety of grapes. I believe they have more than 20 at this point in time on like 115 acres. And so they really gives a wide variety of anything you might like. I still like everything they produce, but I've come to enjoy their reds. Their Cabernet Franc is really good. Their Cabernet Sauvignon is also really good. But they have some fun whites. And we're drinking tonight the Traminette. For many of you on the coasts or in other parts of the country or world, you may not be familiar with Traminette. It's a cross between a hybrid and the Gewürztraminer grape. And what it is it's a hardy grape that works well in colder climates, thus this part of the country. Now, while I've had several of them from Michigan, Traminette wine has actually been named the signature wine of Indiana. And so it just seemed like the right thing to do as we're just getting into this blog with folks all over the place, and wanted to share with you something from our local tastes. So let's go ahead and pour it in here. As I said, it's a semi-sweet, so it's not going to be along the lines of a Riesling or certainly a Gewürztraminer, but kind of along that line still. I'd say probably closer to a Gewürztraminer or a dry Riesling. Yeah, wow, just smells great. When you look at it, you're going to get kind of that yellowish hue, maybe straw. This one's pretty clear, a little bubbling, just the slightest bit of effervescence, but it's not a bubbly per se. But it's great looking, it's clear, just a nice representative of a white wine. On the nose, I get maybe some, it's a little bit of floral, a little bit of citrus. It's you certainly get the sweetness on the smell. Maybe a little bit of honey. It is, this is a 2014 with about 12% alcohol, so it's pretty low, especially if you remember last week's Inferno. Yeah, just a little bit of citrus. So I'm getting more of the honey, but there's just that little crispness that I would expect from citrus. So I'm going to go ahead and taste it now. Cheers. Yeah, it's they're going to call it a semi-dry, a medium dry. I'm going to say it's a tad towards the semi-sweet. It's not sweet, it's not syrupy. There's actually a nice little bit of acidity that reminds me a little bit of the Gewürztraminer. Maybe a little honeydew melon, maybe some pear. Again, it's not syrupy at all. Yeah, the honeydew melon is what I like to say. Yeah, nice, sweet, crisp. We're coming out of the summer season, so I'm going to be drinking a lot less of these in the weeks and months to come. But like a Gewürztraminer, this might go well with a spicy food. If you're eating a salsa that's a little hot, maybe it would be a nice offset to that. Maybe some spicy Indian or Thai food. If you've not had any before, it's going to be hard for you to know what I'm talking about, but it's just a nice, crisp, clean wine. I'm not going to rate it as high as I might a nice dry Riesling. Just not what I enjoy in the same area as that, but I'm going to give it a solid B. It's a well-made wine. It tastes good. It's crisp, not syrupy, that honey or honeydew melon taste. So just very enjoyable. The problem for me with some of these whites are you could just drink a whole glass way faster than you'd think. Yeah, that's just good. That's just good, easy drinking wine. So if you're getting ready to have some dinner, having something spicy, grab yourself a bottle of Traminette. If you happen to be in the Michigan area and get a chance to grab some 12 Corners out of the Benton Harbor area, I'd recommend it. Great people, fun place to visit, lots of good wines, great prices. Do it. We'll see you next week. I think maybe rosé. We're getting ready to knock out the rest of the summer wines. So for Fancy Schmancy Wino, I'm James. Cheers.